They say belly fat is the most stubborn fat on the body, that it stays because of age, because of bad luck, because the body is simply slow to change. But belly fat is not passive weight, it is active tissue, a living storage site under hormonal command. And one of the most powerful hormones controlling that command is insulin. When insulin rises too often, stays elevated too long, or loses its precision inside the body's cells, the rules of fat burning begin to change. The bloodstream changes, the liver changes, fat cells change, and the abdomen, especially the deep fat packed around the organs, becomes one of the body's preferred places to store energy and one of the hardest places to release it from. So why does belly fat become so resistant? Why can the body carry energy and still behave as if it cannot access it? To understand that, it is necessary to look beneath the skin, into the chemistry of storage, the machinery of fat cells, and the hormonal signals silently shaping the waistline. The first quiet signs. Before the belly visibly changes, the metabolism often changes first. The earliest signs are rarely dramatic. Hunger returns sooner than expected. Energy rises after meals, then drops more sharply. The body becomes less comfortable between meals and more dependent on frequent incoming fuel. This is one of the first hints that the machinery responsible for burning stored fat is becoming harder to access. Under healthy metabolic conditions, the body moves between fuel sources with remarkable flexibility. After eating, it uses circulating glucose. Between meals, it gradually shifts towards stored glycogen and then stored fat. Once the system is designed like a well-balanced engine, switching tanks when one begins to empty, but when insulin remains elevated too frequently, that switching becomes less efficient. The body stays biased toward storage mode. Fat cells, especially those in the abdominal region, receive repeated signals to hold their contents rather than release them. Source. This is why the waist can begin changing even when the rest of the body does not change dramatically. The arms may look similar, the legs may not appear very different, yet the abdomen slowly thickens. This pattern matters because belly fat is often not just fat beneath the skin. It includes visceral fat, fat stored deeper, around the liver, intestines, and other abdominal organs. This tissue behaves less like padding and more like an active endocrine organ, and releasing chemical signals into circulation that affect inflammation, insulin action, and metabolic control. Source. The body gives clues early. Earlier hunger, less stable energy, a waistline that changes first. These are not random inconveniences. They are the opening signals of a deeper metabolic shift, where the insulin problem begins. Insulin is often introduced as the hormone that lowers blood sugar. That is true, but it does much more than that. Insulin is also a storage messenger. It directs glucose into muscle cells. It tells the liver to store excess sugar as glycogen, and inside fat tissue, it suppresses lipolysis, the breakdown of stored triglycerides into fatty acids that can be burned for energy. In simple terms, insulin does not just help store fuel, it also tells stored fuel to stay put. Source. This function is essential in the right context. After a meal, it is normal, necessary, elegant. The problem begins when the signal becomes too frequent or too loud. When muscle and liver cells stop responding well to insulin, the pancreas compensates by producing more of it. Blood sugar may still look normal for years, but the hormonal effort required to maintain that normality keeps increasing. This is the quiet beginning of insulin resistance, and fat tissue hears that louder signal constantly. The result is paradoxical. The body may be carrying large amounts of stored energy, yet still struggle to release and use it efficiently. Belly fat becomes easier to accumulate and harder to mobilize. High insulin keeps the gate partly closed. What looks like stubborn fat on the outside is often a hormonal traffic jam on the inside. Wonder why belly fat is different. Not all fat behaves the same way. Subcutaneous fat, the fat just beneath the skin, is one biological depot. Visceral fat, packed around the organs, is another. Visceral fat occupies a privileged and dangerous location. Its blood drains directly toward the liver through the portal circulation, which means the molecules it releases reach one of the body's central metabolic organs quickly and repeatedly. That gives abdominal fat an outsized influence over how the liver handles sugar, fat, and insulin signals. Source now place that biology inside the abdomen. Repeated insulin exposure protects this tissue from being burned. At the same time, visceral fat may release more fatty acids and inflammatory signals into the bloodstream, sending additional metabolic burden toward the liver. The liver, overwhelmed by constant incoming fuel signals, may begin redirecting energy into triglyceride production and further fat storage. This is why belly fat cannot be understood as simple extra weight. It is hormonal tissue in a hormonal neighborhood. The silent progression. The body does not become metabolically inflexible overnight. It drifts there. At first, compensation hides the problem well. The pancreas works harder. More insulin is released. Blood sugar may stay within normal range. Standard lab results may not immediately reveal what is happening. From the outside, everything can appear stable. But inside, the system is becoming more strained. Muscle tissue grows less responsive to insulin. The liver becomes more resistant to its signal. The pancreas increases output. Fat tissue continues hearing repeated storage messages. Visceral fat slowly expands, and as it expands, it becomes more chemically active, attracting immune cells, releasing inflammatory molecules, and becoming less metabolically cooperative. Source. This is one reason belly fat can feel impossible to move. By the time it looks visibly stubborn, the issue is often no longer just stored fat. It is a broader problem of fuel partitioning, where the body sends energy, how it stores it, and whether it can access it again efficiently. The body compensates quietly, then compensates again. There is no alarm bell, only accumulation, a heavier waist, a louder insulin signal, a deeper loss of metabolic flexibility. What people believe versus what science shows. The myths around belly fat are powerful because they are simple. Biology is rarely simple. Belly fat is just a lack of exercise. But abdominal fat is not sitting there because the muscles underneath are weak. It is there because metabolic signals have made that region favorable for storage. Stronger abdominal muscles do not selectively remove the fat covering them. If the body has fat, it should naturally burn it. Science shows that this is not automatically true. The body burns stored fat only when hormonal conditions allow access to it. Insulin is one of the strongest regulators of that access. If insulin stays high, the biological gate to stored fat remains restricted. Source. So the real problem is not just stored energy, it is blocked access to that energy. The science does not reduce belly fat to laziness or willpower. It places it where it belongs, inside hormones, tissue behavior, and the physical chemistry of storage and release. The long-term impact on the body. When the insulin belly fat loop persists long enough, its effects spread far beyond the waist. The liver is often one of the first organs to feel the burden. Increased fatty acid traffic from visceral fat, combined with impaired insulin signaling, can contribute to abnormal fat accumulation in the liver itself. The organ responsible for managing fuel becomes increasingly crowded by it. The pancreas continues working harder, pushing out more insulin to control a system growing less responsive. Muscle tissue remains less efficient at glucose uptake. Triglycerides often rise. HDL cholesterol may fall. The bloodstream becomes a river carrying more metabolic debris than it was designed to carry efficiently. This is why abdominal fat matters as a physiological signal. It is not only extra tissue. It is often the visible marker of a deeper hormonal burden touching the liver, the pancreas, the blood vessels, and the immune system at the same time. Health is not sudden, it is cumulative. Understanding the body's signals. The body gives signals before it gives breakdown. Frequent hunger soon after meals may reflect a system that depends heavily on incoming glucose because access to stored fuel is impaired. Post-meal sleepiness or energy crashes may suggest large insulin swings. The body moving nutrients aggressively, then struggling with the transition afterward. Difficulty going long between meals can reflect metabolic inflexibility. The body struggling to shift from recently eaten fuel to stored fuel. These are not diagnoses, but they are biological language. If they suggest that insulin may no longer be acting like a precise messenger. Instead, it may be acting like a repeated command, store, protect, and defend abdominal reserves. The body is not being difficult, it is being literal. It follows the chemistry in the blood. And if the chemistry keeps saying store, the belly listens. Understanding the body is the first step to respecting it, because the signals come early, long before disease, long before labs worsen, long before the machinery gives out. Belly fat is not just stubborn weight, it is often the visible edge of a deeper metabolic pattern. An insulin problem does not merely alter blood sugar, it changes fuel access. It changes fat cell behavior. It changes the liver, the bloodstream, and the chemistry of the waste itself. And when those changes repeat for long enough, the body begins to defend the very tissue it seems unable to release. That is why the struggle can feel mysterious, because the real resistance is not happening at the surface. It is happening in hormones, in enzymes, in signaling pathways, in the silent chemistry of storage and release. This channel explores the science behind everyday health topics.